Morrison, and I am a watercolor painter mostly. I was asked to do a demonstration on my Florida landscapes, and I was thrilled to do that because I paint a lot of different kinds of subject matter, but what I love to do is Florida themed art, and the older I get, the more I realize painting something that is intrinsically part of what you like, what's part of your soul, makes for a great experience for yourself, for the people that like your art. It makes you want to go to work every day. It allows you to share your story. This is the first example, and this is on traditional paper, 300-pound Kilimanjaro, I believe, maybe arches, but that doesn't matter. So what you see in this is obviously on paper you can get strong detail. I like to create my composition using editing tools of Photoshop, and so this picture was actually shot as a big horizontal, and I saved it a variety of different ways, cropping it, changing it, looking at all of the detail, which is so important to pay attention to what works, what is going to grab the eye of your beholder. And in this subject matter, one of the important things when you're learning to paint landscape is figuring out how to paint in layers of intensity so that what is closest to the viewer has the most intense color, and as you go back in your painting, less detail, less color, your horizon line or your skyline, your color changes in intensity as it goes from top to bottom. So your clouds, you always want to make them look like they're heavier on the bottom if they have water in them at all. Just a lot of different little important things like that that help make your landscape painting successful. But again, going back to the difference in the substrates, so this, you can get this smooth graduation of color in the background. You can hold these really tight lines on paper. You have to build in layers, and the layers, once they dry, are there and they're solid, and you're not going to lose what's underneath unless you start scrubbing on it. So the harder thing about paper is it takes more water, it takes more paint, because it is absorbing in. You cannot remove easily all of your paint back to the white of the paper if you lose too much of your light. So one of the things I do to really maintain my white in my paper is using masking, especially in a palm tree. You can ask my class, they hate me because one of the lessons I make them do is paint a palm tree. To get that three-dimensional look, you have to save light in the front, and you have to go really dark underneath of it to make it look realistic. And so the great thing about paper versus Terraskin, or we're going to also look at aquaboard, is you can use masking in layers if you really want to. So you could save your white, you could put down yellow, you could put down masking again. You could do it in as many layers as you want. When you lift up your masking, you're not going to lift up your paint. You can only use masking to save your white on Terraskin and aquaboard. Otherwise, the paint will come up with it. The thing I like more about aquaboard and Terraskin is the intensity of the color is a lot stronger. And I know that there are products now that allow you to paint a sealer over paper so that you do not necessarily have to put it behind glass, but I still feel like it doesn't look right having paper not behind glass and matte. Whereas with Terraskin, and especially with Aquaboard, I put an acrylic sealer over it, and I'm going to show you the difference here. I don't know if this is going to show up well on the video screen, but this is an example on Aquaboard of the same painting. And one of the things that you can see right away is the modeling in the sky. It's harder on Aquaboard to get a smooth graduation. It's very easy to get sharp edges. And again, you can use masking on Aquaboard to save the white, and then you just hand paint everything else in. But if you can see, the intensity of the color is a lot stronger on here. If you make a mistake, you can literally go all the way back to the white. It's really actually fairly hard to mess up. The Aquaboard is a very fine clay that's adhered onto a masonite board or something like that. But one of the coolest things about this is when you're finished with it and you seal it with an acrylic sealer, framing it open with a like a cradle frame. It's just got a stunning look to it, and I have a lot of clients that really like that. No glass on the front, so you don't have glare. It ends up being more economical for your client, and you can get a bigger image in a contained space because you don't have to have all the matte that goes with traditional paper painting. So my third example is on Terraskin, and you can see here just how much even more intense than on the Aquaboard the color is. It really sits up on top. Again, this one is harder to get a smooth graduation. So one of the things I also really like about this, because I'm a type painter, is it makes it easier to be more painterly. For whatever reason, it allows me to paint more freely. I know I can wipe it off. It is hard if you're using a staining color to go all the way back to the white. If you see here, I let some yellow get out into the sky, and it did not want to lift. It had some staining portions to it. I have seen people scrub it, and really, I probably could have really scrubbed it and gotten it a little bit clearer than that. This paper, you can barely tear it. Like, it is so hard, and it cuts really straight, and it was originally developed for printing purposes, but it has a heat tolerance that's even lower than UPO, which was also originally developed for printing purposes, and so it doesn't go through a heated printer as well. So secondarily, as a painting subject matter, it's ended up being super fun to use. And again, I just love the intensity that you can get in color. I mean, you can see these next to each other. It's just night and day how these colors pop. Because believe it or not, all those same colors are in both, but you can't always see that intensity of color. So we're going to play with this Terraskin today. I encourage you to look up online more information about it. There was so much information, and I'm not good at remembering all the details, but it was, Chief Joe's has done a few different videos that you can watch on YouTube, as have some other artists, and so there's just so much you can learn watching YouTube. I encourage everybody to do that. Now what I've done here, and you can see that it's a very tight drawing. I like to draw tight so that I can be free with my painting. people think I'm crazy painting or drawing tight, but I like to paint fast, and so it just keeps me in the control that I have. I also have some masking on here to save my white. If I'm painting fast, I don't want to lose my white, so I went ahead and did that for this demonstration. I get asked a lot what kind of masking fluid I use. I usually use PBO, but I happen to have a different kind. I think it was a freebie given to me. I don't remember the name of it, but it has a yellow. But the main thing I like to share is how I apply it. I have this applique that you can get, and it comes with different size nozzles. It's metal, and so it gives a very clean, sharp line. The biggest problem with using masking is letting it get old and dry. So if you notice there's no masking in here, I never keep it in here because it clogs up. It's like plaque on your teeth. It just keeps building, and pretty soon it's clogged. So I also keep the neck clean by keeping a needle in it. So if you're struggling with using masking, I don't like using brushes because I just can't control it very well. So I would suggest trying that. And with that, we can get started. Usually what I do with a landscape is I start with the background, the sky, and mainly because I want it to dry while I keep working down, and if I start anywhere else, I'm going to end up dragging my arm through it. And so I want to start with that, and what I wanted to show you, what I mentioned earlier, is if you see, I use my computer to look at my pictures, mainly because I keep losing my picture. I want to show you real quick why I like using my computer. I can zoom in and see detail, especially if you're painting a portrait and you're trying to delineate small little changes and shadows and things like that. Oftentimes you take a photograph and you think you know everything that's in it, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, what the heck is in that little corner? I can't figure it out. Well, if you use a photograph that you can zoom in and out on, you can figure it out. And I always want to make sure that I know exactly what I'm painting before I start painting it. It's a problem if my computer's doing something weird. It's a problem if you don't know exactly what you're painting, because then your person looking at your painting's not going to know what it is either. Okay, so without further ado, painting a sky, the top part of it, I'm going to go ahead and wet this, is always going to be darker, and it's going to get lighter. I'm going to stand up just for a minute here because I'm just trying to get to the top. It's always going to be darker at the top, and I usually use cobalt and aquamarine combination. Depending on what's happening in the sky too, it might be more stormy, it might be later or earlier in the morning. You can see I'm going right over the cloud areas, because you don't want, the biggest thing that bothers me is having hard edges in your clouds, because you want clouds to feel fluffy and soft. I usually don't even draw them very much. I drew them a little bit here just so you could see. I'm going to just let the water run off for a minute because I don't want it to be puddles, and I can also see if I missed any space. So again, this doesn't soak in like regular paper. It's going to sit on top. So you don't have to time things or pay attention quite as much with the application of paint, as far as this is cobalt here and this is ultramarine. You can see I have some pretty other colors in here. I kind of tossed my palette around when I was setting up and got a little bit of interesting things going on here. But so again, you're going to see that it's very hard to get these smooth transactions or smooth graduations like you can on paper. And one of the things that I do to get it smoother is apply paint and then I move my paper so that it will run and it gets as smooth as you're going to get it by doing that. I actually have my paint a little bit too wet, so I'm not getting as much paint on as I want. That's a little better. If you notice, I'm coming up next to the clouds, but I'm not fussing with them because I don't. Nobody's going to be comparing your photograph to your painting. So it doesn't have to be perfect. See how it goes on very unsmooth. So it takes a little bit of time to get used to it. It's not nearly as fussy as Yupo. I don't feel like. Some people can't stand Yupo. I had a hard time with it originally, but you start finding out how to make things work. One of the things that I do like about this is skies oftentimes have all these just kind of wispy clouds going through it, and it's really easy to kind of get that effect on Terraskin just because of the way it doesn't soak into the paper. I'm painting flat because otherwise it's just going to keep running down the paper. And so this edge up here, you can see how it kind of pulls on the edge. I just always kind of plan to frame the edge, either cut the edge or work it out later, because it will, even though this is flat, it does get these little bumps and bulges. Anyway, so to keep going, as you move down your sky, I start adding in some, just going straight to cobalt. And then I'm going to go into almost more just cerulean as you get down further. Again, I'm not worrying about being super fussy about these edges because you can reactivate and move the paint around. I'm just trying to get some paint down on So then I can come back and literally touch edges, move it in. Make sure I get it in all my little nooks and crannies. One of the things that's really hard to do on Yupo paper is to go back in with a second layer. I found that I can do it on this paper. If you're quick, you can't go in and micromanage by any means or keep layering and want everything to keep building a neutral blend, but you can, if you're quick, you can go in and, especially if you're trying to use the same colors, and just build more intensity, which is usually what happens in my skies. Once it dries, it seems like it's not quite as strong as I want it to be. And so like right now, to me, that's not strong enough. I want to try to get rid of some of the little puddles that start happening. So I'm just going to let it travel a little bit. Here's one of the nice things is just hitting some of these areas in my clouds, or if I want to remove, you can see how easy it is to just keep playing with it. Get a thirsty brush that's clean, and you can come back and I definitely don't have enough. Strong color at the top. I started with too much water. So one of the things that is a challenge when you're going between media is how each one handles things a little bit differently. And so on paper, you need all that water. On this, you don't need quite as much. This is my travel palette that goes back and forth to class. And so what's happened here is you can see I've got some sediment showing up in here because my ultramarine got a little dried out. So I just take a Q-tip and get it all happy again. And when it dries on your painting, you also can knock a lot of that off. So while this is drying, I don't really like to mess with the clouds a lot while the blue is drying, so I kind of let that set and I move on into the tree area.